one of the things that I regularly talk with one friend about, and which has inspired, in a sense, my making videos like this in the first place, has been talking to him about concepts of success. And I've mentored people who are younger than me, significantly younger than me, significant enough that I suppose I innately have some thing of value to them simply because I'm not necessarily because I'm from a different time, but sometimes, but because there's enough of a gap there that I've experienced things that they're interested in. And I'm becoming more and more of a decent speaker on the mistakes that I've made, let's say, but also on motivating and all this kind of stuff. And I've been talking to this friend for some time about the kinds of things that would turn him from being from this malaise into something that's more motivated. And that's essentially impossible. It's something that is internal. It's either it's either successful ideological manipulation of somebody with an external force that gives them goals, or it's something that's internally generated. And I, and it's not exactly like it's there's multiple kinds of people, and this sort of person is just influenced like that, and that sort of person, one person is inspired in one way or another. I think an individual might find value from multiple places and at multiple times during their life. And I've been thinking about what things a person can do to something, and it's not really something that we know how to define, because it's not even something that parents just get as an ability to talk about these kinds of things. And what I have learned over the years that I've noticed in myself has been something like being nice. And it's a kind of a general concept. And the one thing that a person can work on, that's a real thing, that a lot of things have to go into being able to do this, is to be predictable. And that can begin with something like being on time, being good for your word. So if you say something as simple as, hey, let's make plans. Okay, when are you available? Okay, I'm available here. You're there, and you're there on time. And from there, it's possible to do a little bit more, like, you understand the people that you're going to be meeting, let's say friends of yours, and you try to fill in the gaps. Like, hey, we were going to come over for dinner. I thought I'd bring something to drink, or I thought I'd bring dessert or something like that. So you're there, and you're there on time, and you do a little bit more. I mean, so there's a kind of personal growth that happens there, and it's not very hard. It's a friend, somebody you care about. It's a time. It's something that you knew ahead of time, didn't have something else already scheduled. Hopefully you're good enough for that. And if you're not, learn to schedule things. And you see it coming, and it's if you're in a bad mood and you're unmotivated, having something on a schedule and having something upcoming lets you almost look forward to it in a way that the lack of motivation is no longer a factor. It's there, you've planned for it, it's ahead of time, it's expected of you, so it's some external force. It doesn't really require internal motivation anymore. Now, that's just kind of like honor, essentially. And it's possible for a version of that to grow gently over time, where one can intentionally create items on a schedule and have a kind of respect to oneself, maybe to the schedule first. And the problem is, a lot of people will go to an extreme and will block off every last little thing, and that the concept of a schedule becomes so tyrannical that, I mean, you would do that and then have X number of things a day and just burn out and freak out, and not being able to deal with it will become this, it'll just happen. And so somebody who's already vulnerable in the first place will it'll just be horrible for them. So the baby step is to be good for your word. And even if you're bad at something, and even if you're stupid, and if you're actually even willing to admit that of yourself, even when you're bad at a thing and you know it, and you go and you're working with other people with that thing, you can, because you're reliable, other people can work around your inadequacies. Now, you can be brilliant, but if you're brilliant and you're inconsistent, then people have to have, like, it's very difficult for the people around you to deal with the inadequacies, the voids that you leave when you are late and when you're unpredictable, that unreliability, that lack of there ends up being a kind of a lack of trust. So, for example, if you're employed and your employer is smart, and you're not the brightest, not the best, but you're always there, you're always on time, you're always good for what you're like, you're good for being mediocre, you're reliable for that. They're going to be rock stars around, but if they're inconsistent rock stars and something needs to be done, and the business needs a thing, they're eventually going to learn that rock star's not is a risk. They're going to go to you. They're going to go to you because you're good. You've always been there. You're always reliable. And that's one of the things that I think can be pretty straightforward for somebody who doesn't know how to succeed in life, who doesn't know how to be motivated, doesn't know how just to work on a kind of self-esteem of respecting other people, even though, so it's not quite internal, but it's about the responsibility out there, and creating that is a way of motivating one to kind of serve an ideal. And there was a thing that I wanted to say, something like, if you let's say that you have a goal, and you admit that goal so much to yourself that you tell people that are closest to you who aren't judgmental about it, friends or family, could be anybody, could be everybody you can get that crosses your path. Hey, here's my card. This is what I'm working. This is what I do. And you're so proud of it. But the thing is, when you do that, when you admit to your friends that you've got this problem that you're working on, that you have this goal, that you're working on this thing, you're working on your art, you're working on your book, you're working on your health, and you admit to them, now you have invested a kind of expectation in them. Now, they might not, but you kind of have this feeling where you can kind of expect them to wonder about it the next time you see them, and the next time, and the next time. If they're solid friends who know you well enough, they may or may not bring that up, and they'll do it in the way that is best for you because they know you well enough, and they will encourage you, and it'll become a kind of thing where you told them that you were going to do a thing. Now you can be good for your word, and doing that lets you externalize that just enough, so that you become motivated, but not quite internally. So if a person is so unmotivated and so shy about it, that doesn't quite, there isn't quite the bonfire in them, they can create a line of communication where other people can help encourage them. And it's kind of like moving it from this internal concept of responsibility out to being a matter of the accountability, that the reliability, the honesty, the honor that is a little bit more external, that kind of draws that sort of person out to to excel, to achieve the things that they said they set out for, those goals. But I think there's another way of being motivated that isn't the internet advice of not motivated. Have you tried being motivated? Thank you, internet. I think there's something else where a person like that can learn just the simple concept of honor, of trustworthiness, of predictability, and can maybe start with a little calendar or start with appointments, external appointments, just write them down and be good for it, and then work on moving that a little bit to your plans with friends, and then maybe one day admit that you're working on certain things to your friends, ask for help. And if you've got a good bond already with your friends, don't make this a risky thing to experiment with people who you're not sure if they're going to be positive about some life thing that you're working on, anything like that. Make it something that you know for a fact, or maybe you've already kind of talked about it. Say, oh yeah, I decided I am going to do that thing after all. Like, maybe they already gave you some advice. Maybe you talked about it a little bit. You just go to them and say, I'm not really sure how right now, but I want to learn to draw. I want to, and they'll be happy. They'll be excited for you if you've chosen the right friends. Friends are a choice, hopefully for you. And that honor that you create, that help that you get, will push you a little bit to rise to the level that you create for yourself to achieve those sorts of goals.